All right, and shalom, 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 everybody. This is Evangelist James, and I'm with the King James Bible University, coming out of Durham, North Carolina. And today's teaching that I'm going to be bringing forth is entitled, "For We Must Needs Die." So today, my brothers and sisters, we're going to have this conversation. But we're going to have this conversation through the scriptures to get an understanding on what's going on. So we must keep in mind that this body that we're in, this body has an expiration date that's placed upon it. And that it is going to go back to the ground from whence it came. See, this flesh that we're in was not created to be eternal. But we was placed in these temporary vessels to learn from. We're here to learn, but these bodies itself are not going to live forever. See, we were only given a certain amount of time in this world. So while we're in this world, we cannot waste nor squander that time that we actually have in this life, being consumed in the vain things of this life that won't actually profit us anything. See, none of us that are here actually know how many years that we actually have left in this life. None of us actually know when that day will come that we will pass on from this life. So it doesn't matter if we lived 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, or even 100 years in this world. There is nothing that any of us can do to get those years back. No matter how much we as a people may attempt to preserve this flesh and preserve this life, we won't get those years back. See, the more that we live in this world, the more time that we actually spend in this life is the closer that we actually get towards death. See, our lives aren't going to get any longer. So, providing we spend our entire lives caught up in our own desires and our own pleasures of life and never truly surrender our lives to JEHOVAH, then what did we actually accomplish? What truly did we actually achieve? So if we are going to live in JEHOVAH, then the only thing that we can do is die to this world. Because if not, if we don't, we're always going to struggle and we're always going to operate in rebellion and never fulfill our purpose on what we actually need to do. See, if we already know that our flesh is going to die, then what profit is it to continue to feed it what it wants and what it desires when the agreement from the beginning was already set on what is to happen? And this is what we're going to see as we go throughout the scriptures. So we're going to start right here in Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, chapter 14 and verse 17. And it says, "All flesh waxeth old as comparing a garment, for the covenant." So the agreement from the beginning is, thou shalt die the death. Genesis chapter 3, verse 17. And unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast learned of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not learn of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow thou shalt learn of it all the days of thy life. Verse 18. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt learn the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, so learn knowledge, till thou return unto the ground. For out of it thou wast taken, for thus thou art, in your perfection and beauty, and thus, and unto thus shalt thou return. Let's go to James, chapter 4, verse 13 and verse 14. Go to now, you that say today or tomorrow, we will go into such a city, to such a people, and continue there a year, and buy and sell and get gain. Whereas you know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time, and then vanisheth away. So this is letting us know that this flesh is completely temporary. We are only here in this world to learn and to gain the knowledge that we need to know, that we may separate from this flesh, not to sit there and stay joined to it, because our lives are nothing but a mere vapor. We are just as dust and ashes. 1 minute we here, then the next we not. So why would we spend our days in vanity? Why would we spend our days to gain, to achieve, and to covet after the possessions of this life, such as the money, the cars, the fame, the power, the status, the notoriety, and all these things? When once our time is up in this life, none of those things will mean anything. Those achievements and those accomplishments that we pride ourselves over were only false illusions to keep us trapped in this false reality, believing that we actually achieving something that we not, when in true reality, we only live in a life that can only lead to emptiness, because there is nothing that we can actually gain from it. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 27 and verse 1. And it says, boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth. Psalms chapter 89, Psalms chapter 89, verse 47 and verse 48. And it says, remember how short my time is. Wherefore hast thou made all men in vain? What man, what male or female is he that liveth and shall not see death? Shall he deliver his soul from the hand, from the power of the grave? Selah. So we need to consider this. Who can deliver themselves from the grave? All flesh will go back to the ground from which it came. So death is a transformation process that we must go through in order to actually receive life. But we must understand that if we choose to live our life according to how we want to live and do what we want to do, and we never transform our lives while we are actually living, once that flesh expires, once we go to the grave, then what are we going to do? We can't change anything from that point, because we had every opportunity right now to do so while we was living, to make those adjustments and to make those corrections in our lives that we need to make. So we shouldn't fear the sentence of death, but understand that it's a transitional process that we must go through. See, everybody in this world is going to experience the death of their flesh. Nobody is going to avoid that. See, we don't know how long we got in this world, nor do we know what tomorrow may bring. But while we still here and we still have life in our bodies, we need to be making the necessary changes now to our lives. We can't wait till later. We can't believe that we still got time, because we don't know how much time we got. We can't get comfortable in thinking that time is on our side. But when we take that very last breath, that's it. It ain't no changing that. It ain't no coming back from that. So it's not that we should fear it, but we need to make sure we are prepared, that we can make sure we make those proper adjustments to make sure we get our lives in order before that time comes upon us. Let's go to Sirach or Ecclesiasticus chapter 41. We're going to hit verse 3 and verse 4. And it says, "Fear not the sentence of death. Remember them that have been before thee, and that come after. For this is the sentence of the Lord over all flesh. And why art thou against the pleasure of the Most High?" There is no inquisition. So there is no examination in the grave, whether thou hast lived 10 or 100 or 1,000 years. So that's why I said from the beginning, it don't matter how many years we lived. Once this flesh expires, that's it. See, while we here in this life right now, we being examined right now. We being proven, we being tried, we being tested right now on what we gonna hold to. But once we go to the grave, that's it. It ain't no examination in the grave. It ain't gonna be no consideration in the grave. Whatever is in our hearts, that's what we gonna be judged upon based on what's in our heart, because Jehovah looks upon the heart. So all we can do is make sure we make those proper corrections now, before we leave from here. Because after we leave from this life, we ain't making no corrections. It ain't no more chances, because we got every chance and every opportunity that we need right now. So for whatever reason, if we choose to squander our opportunity to put forth our best efforts, our very best efforts right now, while we have the opportunity to do so, then who we going to blame? Who we going to place the blame on then? What excuses are we going to bring before God when we stand before him? See, we can sit there and waste our lives doing everything that we want to do. But if we do that, how are we going to truly make our calling and our election sure? See, we have to see that. We have to truly take this walk seriously and understand what it is that we need to be doing. So let's go to Job. We're going to hit Job chapter 14 and verse 5. Job chapter 14 and verse 5. And it says, "Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds, that he cannot pass." Ecclesiastes chapter 8. And we're going to hit verse 6 to verse 8. Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 6 to verse 8. And it says, "Because to every purpose there is a time and judgment. Therefore, for that reason, the misery of man is great upon him. For he knoweth not that which shall be. For who can tell him when it shall be? There is no man that hath power over the spirit to retain the spirit, neither have he power in the day of death. And there is no discharge in that war." So this is letting us know there's no way that we're going to get around this, because a lot of us will have the issue with this because we struggle in that war. We struggle in that battle with our flesh. Even though we realize that our time in this life is short and we know that it's going to come to an end, we still choose to hold on to the things of this life, even when we know it's all vanity. We know this. But this is the way of the ungodly who reason amongst themselves. We even going to see this when we go over here to Wisdom of Solomon. He's going to tell us in Wisdom of Solomon chapter 2. In Wisdom of Solomon chapter 2, and we're going to hit verse 1. He tells us right here, Wisdom of Solomon chapter 2, verse 1, it says, for the ungodly said, so the unwise, the unrighteous said, reasoning with themselves, but not aright. Our life is short and tedious, and in the death of a man there is no remedy. Neither was there any man, any male or female, known to have returned from the grave. See, this is what we saying, but it's because of our own reasoning that we have the issue. It's because of our own reasoning that gets us in a lot of trouble. Because that's why we can even see when we go over here to Sirach chapter 27 and verse 5, he tells us right here, and it says, the furnace proveth the potter's vessels, so the trial of man is in his reasoning. It's in his desire. It's in his mind. It's what's in his heart. But he tells us in Proverbs chapter 14 and verse 12, it says what? There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, unto a male or female, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Why? Because at the end of the day, all of this is still going to lead to death. Everything that we want to do, everything that we want to accomplish, everything that we want to achieve, or anything that we desire in this flesh, in this world, in the end, is going to lead to death. But we have to understand that there's a dual nature to it, because not only providing we choose to continue to live for this world, is everything going to come to an end that brings our flesh this pleasure that we seek. Not only is that eventually going to come to an end, being that all flesh shall die, but also providing we choose to stay tied to this flesh and live for this world, not only is our flesh going to die, but our spirits will be separated also. Then we'll end up receiving that second death, which is that lake of fire, a complete separation from JEHOVAH, all because of our own reasoning. See, this is that war that was spoken of in Ecclesiastes. No man, no male or female is going to escape this battle, but our own reasoning is going to determine our outcome in that. See, those of us who choose the path of the ungodly, believing that we can continue to enjoy the pleasures of this life and just live our life to the fullest, have already chosen that path of destruction, that path of perdition. Why? Because we reasoned from within ourselves. We trying to determine our own path, and we trying to direct our own steps, when that is vanity, when that is something that we should not be doing. That's why he tell us this. When we go over here to Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 9, he lets us know. It says what? A man's heart deviseth his own way. Yeah, a man's mind, a man's reasoning deviseth his way. Yeah, but the Spirit of God directeth his steps. Exactly the point. Because we shouldn't be directing our own ways, but we still try to do so anyways. As he tells us in Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse 23, he makes it clear to us. It says what? Oh, Spirit of God, I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walketh, that liveth to directeth his steps. So if we continue to use our own reasoning and reason within ourselves to attempt to direct our own path, then how are we truly going to get ourselves anywhere? How are we truly going to achieve life, but we going to use our own reasoning to direct our path? When he clearly letting us know it's not in man. It's not in us to direct ourselves, to direct our path. Because all we going to do is lead ourselves to the pathway of destruction. That's literally all we're going to do if we hold on to our own way, if we hold on to this flesh. As he tells us in Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse 5, and it says, thus said the Spirit of God, cursed be the man, the male or female that trusteth in man. We trusting in flesh, and maketh flesh, as it's right there, and maketh flesh his arm, his strength, whose heart, whose mind, whose desire, whose reasoning departed from the Spirit of God. So we see the flesh is already cursed. We seen that from the beginning. Curse was the ground. So how can we really expect to achieve anything? How can we really expect to truly receive life, which is eternal life, if we're not willing to let this temporary life go? if we're not willing to completely let this flesh go. See, a lot of us believe that we born into this world to enjoy this world. A lot of us believe this. We believe we born into this world to enjoy this world. This is why you hear all the time, oh, live your life to the fullest. We hear YOLO. If nobody don't know what YOLO mean, that means you only live once. We hear this stuff all the time. We hear, oh, live your best life. See, we hear these quotes all the time. Shoot, I'm sure many of us held to these things at one point. Me, myself, I held to it. Why? Because I was trying to live my life to the fullest. Just out there in the world. Just trying to live. Just trying to live life. Just trying to enjoy the pleasures that came with this world. Satisfying my flesh. Trying to accomplish and do everything possible that I could do just to say that I did it. Living for adventure. Oh, I want to go to this place. I want to go to that place. Not understanding that this world is a matrix and nothing in this life is real. Because if it was real, then it would last forever. But it doesn't. Nor does it bring any everlasting satisfaction to one's soul. It's just a temporary pleasure that we get from the things that we like to do. And then after that, it goes away. Then to get that same high that we want again, we got to go through that same cycle that continuously repeats itself. We got to keep getting that temporary satisfaction over and over and over and over again. This is what happens. But I was so busy caught up in my flesh and trusting in my own flesh, even after knowing the truth, because I still reasoned. I was still reasoning within myself that I could find some way to enjoy the pleasures of this life and then still attempt to serve JEHOVAH simultaneously. And this was vanity. See, one thing we have to understand, we wasn't put in this world to fall in love with this world. Oh, I want to do this. I want to go do that. I want to go to this place. I want to go to that place. We was put in this world to learn from the things here so we can understand what those things actually teach us spiritually. We here to learn from our experiences and the things that's created, that's around us and what those very things teach us. This is why we have to always keep in mind. One thing we have to always keep in mind as we go throughout this life, everything that's around us, everything that God made, there is something. That is a teaching tool for us to learn from. That is a teaching method for us to learn from. Everything that God made. We can't take anything for granted that was created by the Most High, because there is something that we can learn from. That's why we can see this here as we go over here to Romans chapter 1. In Romans chapter 1, and he tells us this in verse 20. And it says, Romans chapter 1 and verse 20. And it says, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. See, when we go out into this world, we should always be seeking to learn from the things that's around us. Even when we go different places, when we travel to different cities, when we travel to different countries, and we travel to different parts of the world, it isn't just for us to just travel to those places just for the heck of it, just to say we went somewhere, or to just merely just enjoy it. But as we go to these places, it gives us an opportunity to learn, because what we will see as we go to these different places throughout the world, we always going to see who? Us. Black folks. We're going to see us in all these different cities and all these different countries and all these different regions, no matter where we go. As a whole, no matter what country or what place you go to, you always going to see us in the same exact position. You always going to see us in the ghettos. You always going to see us in the low poverty neighborhoods, because that is our condition as a people, showing you how JEHOVAH spread us all to the four corners of the earth. So as a whole, we have to remember that we are one people, and JEHOVAH looks at us as one people. That's why you can even see this when we go over here to Romans. Not Romans, we're going to go over here to Amos. because we're going to see something real quick. When we go over here to Amos chapter 3, tell us something over here. In Amos chapter 3, we're going to hit verse 1 and verse 2. He tell us something right here. It says, hear this word that the Spirit of God has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family. That's everybody, which I brought up from the land of Egypt, so that house of bondage, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. For that reason, I will punish you for all your iniquities, your acts of sins. So he won't just speaking to one person. He not just speaking to those of us that's here in America. He's speaking to all of us that spread to the four corners of the earth. He's speaking to the whole family. He's speaking to the whole house of Israel, because we all sinned against Jehovah. So we all get punished as one. So that's why I say it again. As we go and we travel throughout this world, we're going to see that similitude. We are going to see that no matter where we go, no matter what city, no matter what town, no matter what country, no matter what region, we always going to be in the same exact position. So as we travel out of the countries that we in, it's not for us just to say, oh, I just want to go here so I can enjoy it and live life and enjoy life. No, it gives us the ability to learn and understand who we actually are. No matter what country or place that we travel to all around the world, we as a people are in the same position, which was due to our own disobedience. So when we go to these places, we can see that. We can witness that. That shows us proof. That shows us evidence that the word of this Bible is true. That shows us evidence that we are the people of this Bible. Because no matter where you go, you always going to see us. You always going to see the children of Israel in the exact same position as a whole. No matter where you go in this world, there's no other people who will fit that except for us. And we have the ability to witness that. It's proof that the scriptures is true. We can see that and we can realize that. But then we can also see that once that truth comes to us, we all gather together as one, as a collective, and from all these different positions in this world. We don't gather together physically, but in spirit as we come and we learn of Jehovah's word. But see, our problem is, many of us, we get so caught up living for our flesh, we just want to live life. We just want to travel, explore, and adventure and say that we've gone all these places in the world and done all these things, without actually seeking to learn from the things that was created, without actually seeking to learn why these things was made and what it's meant to teach us. We can even take the animals, for example. See, these animals and these creatures that were made, rather if they're beasts of the field, fish of the sea, fowl of the air, or creeping thing, all these creatures serve their purpose for why they was created. That's why he tells us something when we go over here to Genesis. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 31, he tells us right here, it says, and God saw everything that he had made, and behold, remember, it was very good, because everything that God made was very good, because it was good for what it was made for, such as anything, something that we talk about all the time. You got the pig, you got the swine. It was created for a purpose for us to learn from. So is it good? Yes. However, it's still unclean to us, but it was created for us to understand what we need to learn. That's why when we go over here and we look at Leviticus chapter 11, verse 7 and verse 8, he tells us, and a swine, though he divide a hoof and be cloven footed, yet he cheweth not the cud. He is unclean to you. Of their flesh shall ye not eat, and their carcass shall you not touch. They are unclean to you. So he clearly letting us know that it's unclean to you, meaning to me and you, the children of Israel. See, if you got other people in other nations that want to eat a swine, then that's them. But he's making it clear to us. The swine is unclean to you. So it's not for us to go out and seek to live like the world. But this is what we choose to do. When we sit there, when we got to have our bacon, we got to have our pork chops, we got to have our ribs, we got to have our barbecue and all these things. When this beast was never created to be consumed. See, this is a teaching mechanism for us. So we not to eat of it, meaning we are not to consume it physically because it's unclean. It was never made to be consumed. But we need to understand its nature, understand what it's about, understand how it operates. It was never created nor designed for us to physically consume. But once we understand how this swine operates, you watch it, you observe it. This was a similitude for us to understand that this is speaking of an unclean person that we are not to learn from. That's why he tell you, he divided the hoof. So he has divided practices. He's cloven-footed. So he has divided desires. However, he don't chew the cud. He don't consider. He don't meditate. He don't consider the dreams, the visions, the prophecies. So their flesh, you should not learn of it. So we're not to take in their ways. We're not to internalize their nature, their carcasses, which is their lifestyle. You should not touch it. You should not join to it. So we're not to join to that way because it's unclean to you. It's unclean to us to join to that lifestyle. If you have divided the desires and practices, but don't meditate nor consider the dreams, the visions, and prophecies of the scripture, that's unclean. Because that is a lifestyle of a hypocrite, one who speaks with a desire towards God, but doesn't actually do the work, nor consider anything according to scripture. See, this was the whole point of us learning of these beasts, because these things teach us of the ways of people, which some are clean to learn of that lifestyle, and some are unclean for us to not learn of that lifestyle. That's why we get down here to same chapter, Leviticus chapter 11, verse 46 and 47. He tells us. Verse 46 and 47, it says, "This is the law of the beast and of the fowl, and every living creature that moveth in the waters, and of every creature that creepeth upon the earth, to make a difference between the unclean and the clean, and between the beast that may be eaten and the beast that may not be eaten, may not be learned of." See, but our issue, when we caught up in this world, we look at things as opportunities to enjoy. We want to consume it when it was never created for that. Just as with any other creature, any other beast, such as a snake, a dog, a lion, or any fowl, or any bird, or any creature of the water, or fish, or any creepy thing, or insect. We have to understand that these things was created and made so we can discern the difference between the two. Because every beast, every fowl, every living creature in the waters, every creature that creeps upon the earth, it's going to show the nature and characteristics of a man, a male or female. Rather, it's an unclean lifestyle and practice, or it's a clean lifestyle and practice. And this is to teach us about our very selves. So if we are living the lifestyles of these creatures, to see if we are living the lifestyles of these creatures, that's why we are here in this world. So these things can teach us, because they are all a temporary teaching method for us. But it's still all temporary, because it's still all flesh. See, they're not here for us just to sit there and say, oh, let me consume that. Let me try that. Let me see what this one tastes like. Let me see what that tastes like. It's not there for that. These things was not created for our fleshly enjoyment and our fleshly appetite. We're supposed to examine and learn from these creatures, because they're here to teach us about ourselves. Then you have guys out here that want to go out here and they want to hunt and want to kill these creatures for sport, for fun, for entertainment. Willing to kill and destroy God's creation for sport. What is that? When we're supposed to be learning from these things, meditating and considering their ways, so we can understand what it's showing us spiritually. But the first thing we want to turn around and do, is try to consume something. We want to see what it tastes like, sitting there trying to make sport of God's creation when they was made as a teaching method for us. But we want to do everything else. But the point is, again, it's all still temporary, because they are all still flesh. We're going to look at something. We're going to go over here to Genesis chapter 7. And we're going to hit verse 21. And it says, "And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle, and of beasts, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man." Because all flesh is going to die. All flesh is going to come to an end. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 50. And it says, now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, neither doeth corruption inherit incorruption. So I went here again to show us that all flesh will die. All flesh will be separated. So when it comes to the creatures, this helps us realize even more how temporal this life is. Because I'm gonna tell you, see, I used to always sit there and I used to wonder, well, when you have you got an animal, you got a beast, you got a creature that when they die, what actually happens to them? Do they not have life after this? Do they not have anything after this life ends? But then I realized again that these creatures, these beasts, these fowls, these creeping things, they are all flesh. And all flesh goes back to the ground from whence it came. These creatures are all a part of this construct. They are all a part of this matrix. So the only purpose that they serve is in this life as teaching tools for us to learn from. That's all they are. That's it. That's where it hit me, that these things only serve the purpose here in this life to learn of. It ain't no purpose. They don't have no purpose outside of this life. They only exist in this construct, just as with all flesh only exists in this construct, in this life, because it's all temporal. The same with grass, the same with trees, the same with plants. Though they have life in this world, they only serve a purpose for us here to learn from. They are only physical things that hold spiritual truths for us to learn of. But after this world ends, all those things will perish because they only serve a temporal purpose for a time. So we only here for a time to learn of the things that's around us, not to sit here and become attached to the things of this world. It's just a teaching mechanism. Everything around us is just a teaching mechanism. That's it. See, it's just like you can have somebody who might have this dog. Let's say you got this person, they might have this dog that they love. Let's make it a golden retriever. You know, most people know what a golden retriever is. But this dog was only created for us to understand its nature and its characteristics. So we can understand how a dog operates and what it's about. So we can understand what that is. But our problem is we get so attached to it. What we start doing, we start treating it like it's a person. We start giving it birthdays. We start dressing it all up, giving it a name, laying up with it, doing all these things when it's still an unclean beast. We get attached to the dog, not understanding the characteristics of the dog. Because a dog will eat anything. It'll eat his own poop. It'll eat his own vomit. That's why he even tell you over here in Proverbs. In Proverbs chapter 26, that's why we even see this here. He let us know. It says what? Proverbs chapter 26, verse 11. It says what? As comparing a dog return to his vomit, so a fool return to his folly. Because just as a dog would do this is what people will do. It's showing you how we operate. Because we will return to those old lifestyles. We'll sit there and return to that filth that we supposed to have got rid of, that we were supposed to left behind, making us whores. Because we'll mess around with anything. We'll learn of any doctrine. This is why he tell you, it won't be no dogs in the kingdom. That's why you see this over here. When we go over here to, let's go to Revelations. Let's go to Revelation chapter 22. Over here in Revelation chapter 22 and verse 15. Well, we're going to read verse 14 and verse 15. And it says, blessed, wisdom and given are they that do his commandments, and they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates of the city. Watch this. For without are dogs, and sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. So ain't no dogs going into the kingdom. So we can see that this dog ain't no good, because this dog is an evildoer. You can see and understand the characteristics of this dog being an unclean beast, being this evil, wicked person. So when you examine the physical dog, seeing their nature, seeing what they do and how they operate, it shows you those of us who operate in that way. So when people get dogs, the first thing we like to say, oh, this is man's best friend. That's the first thing we like to do. We want to befriend the dog and treat it like it's a person instead of understanding what that dog is about. But the point is, it only exists here in this world as a teaching tool. It's a similitude of a spiritual truth. Because eventually, it's going to die. It's flesh. It's going to go back to the ground. But when that dog dies, the first thing we like to do, we want to mourn. We want to mourn over the dog. We want to cry over the dog. We want to be sorrowful behind the dog. When we fail to realize, if you was to go and get you another dog and go and get you another golden retriever, you can get the same exact one and it's going to look the same exact way as that previous dog that you had before. It's going to bark the same. It's going to eat the same. It's going to sleep. It's going to poop. It's going to play with you. It's going to try to lick you and do all those same exact things that your previous dog was doing. Why? Because that's how he was made. That's how he was created. That's its nature. It's going to operate in the same exact way because it was only created to serve its purpose here in this world. But we try to make it be something that is not. So once it dies, it don't have no life outside of this construct because it's a part of this world. So the point I want us to see with everything that we're looking at is everything in this world that you can see, every creature, every beast, every fowl, every fish of the sea, every creeping thing that's upon the earth, its existence and its purpose in this world are to serve as teaching tools and teaching methods for us to understand the spiritual truths behind which they was made. But it all has a temporal existence because all flesh, every creature of this world, all those things will come to an end. So while we are here in this life, we should be seeking to understand everything about the things that was made that's here. That's what we should be seeking to understand. But everything here is temporal. Everything that has life, it lives for a time, then it dies. But this cycle continuously repeats itself. That's why we can see this when we go over here to Ecclesiastes. We're going to see something. We go to Ecclesiastes. We're going to hit Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 and verse 2. We're going to see this. It says what? To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. So we see everything here in this world, in this construct, in this matrix, it serves its purpose for its season and its appointed time. But it's not going to last forever. It's only for appointed time. But that cycle continuously repeats itself over and over again. And we can see this when we go over here to Genesis chapter 8. He tells us something. In Genesis chapter 8 and verse 22, he tells us, it says, while the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. See, this is why we can even see why you have the different seasons. You have the winter season, and then you have the summer. This cycle continuously repeats itself over and over and over and over again. But the question is, do we actually consider why? Do we consider the purpose of the winter season when things die? The dead season. Many plants and many trees die. They lose their leaves and their covering. Do we consider it? Then when the summer comes and these trees and these plants flourish again and become fruitful and fruits produce, do we consider the reason behind this constant cycle and what it's showing us and what it's teaching us? See, we must understand that the earth must be nourished in order to produce works. So just as when the rain comes down from the clouds, the water that comes down, when it hits the ground, does it evaporate again back into the sky? See, it's funny because that's something that I actually believed until today, until I was taught that was completely not true. That was not true. Because how could the water come down from the sky and be gathered up back again into the sky? Well, you will never see in scripture where the water is actually called back up. But the issue is science and these vain babblings of the world teach us once water comes down from the clouds, then once it hits the ground, then it's going to evaporate back up into the sky. See, this was what we learned from science. This is what we learned growing up. I know I'm not the only one who actually learned this. That's what we learned. That's what we was taught. So if the water evaporates back up into the sky, then where is it actually going? Where is it being received to? So if the water vapor is being received back into the sky, then what is it actually receiving back up when there's nothing to actually receive it? See, the whole point of the water raining down from the sky is to nourish the earth. And that allows things to grow. Just as you plant a seed in the earth and the water raining down upon it, once it rains down, it has to join itself to what's under the firmament, what it drops into. So if science teaches us that the water comes down and then it just evaporates back up. So if the water truly went back up, then how can the ground be truly watered? Because then as soon as it hits the ground, it's going to be received back into heaven. Then it defeats the purpose of it actually watering the ground. That's why it came down to water the ground. So everything that receives that water, those rainforests, all plants, everything that receives nourishment from the water, it would all die, because instead of actually receiving the water that rains upon it, all the water going to do is just evaporate back up into the sky. But that's what science teaches us, that this water vapor evaporates back into the sky. But if that was true, then what's actually receiving it back up? See, this is what we was taught. And I believe this. I actually sat there and believed this until today. I was having a conversation with an elder, and we did today. This is what I came to understand. See, but we have to see the truth of what the scriptures is actually telling us, because just something small as that, believing something as that, can get us in so much, and can still get us in so much trouble, because that's still being caught up in the things of the world, believing what they taught us in science. Matter of fact, I'm gonna pull this scripture real quick because I wanna even show that what he even tell us, that we ain't supposed to be caught up in those things. That's why he tell us in 1 Timothy chapter 6. He tell us this in 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 20. It says what? Oh, Timothy. But all of us, we have to understand this. Keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called. Because that's what they're going to teach us. They're going to teach us things, and we embed these things into our minds and take them as truth. But we need to understand and see what the scriptures actually tell us. We can't hold to these things that the world tells us. We need to see what the scriptures tell us. So we're going to look at it. We're going to see something. We're going to see a few things. We're going to go over here to Genesis chapter 1, and we're going to hit verse 6 and verse 7. He's going to tell us something. And it says, and God said, let there be a firmament. So let there be a separation in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. So we see that there's a separation between the waters, spiritually, between the knowledges above and the knowledges from beneath. See, we, people, flesh, are from the ground, But just as you plant a seed in the ground, it is nourished from what comes down from above, which are those waters from above, just as we are nourished from the knowledge that comes down from above and rains upon us. We're going to see this. We're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 32. And we're going to hit verse 1 and verse 2. And it says what? Give ear, O ye heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. My doctrine shall drop as comparing the rain, and my speech shall distill as comparing the dew, as the small rain upon the tender herb, and as the showers upon the grass. So that doctrine is going to drop upon us as this rain, as Jehovah's knowledge coming down. It don't say it don't say once it come down, then it's gonna go back up. Watch this. But we even gonna see this. He gonna tell us clearly right here. Isaiah chapter 55. In Isaiah chapter 55 and verse 10. He gonna make it clear to us. It says right here, it says what? For as the rain, comparing the rain cometh down, and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, clear, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread, knowledge to the eater. So we can see here, clear as day, once that rain comes down, it's received into the earth. It's not going to return back up. It's going to join to what is received into. Just as knowledge rains upon us that we may be nourished and produce works. Just as plants produce its fruits in the harvest. Because that's the purpose behind it. But then, again, we go back and we can ask any scientist, any philosopher, anybody who believes they gonna tell us that nope, once that water come down, once that water hit the ground, it's gonna evaporate back up into the air. But the scriptures make it clear, he's showing us the similitude of it. When that rain come down, it's not gonna return thither, but it's gonna water the earth. It's gonna nourish what it joins to. But no matter what, they gonna tell us, no, it's going back up. This is what we're talking about. So this is why we must understand the purpose and the similitude by the things that are created. This constant cycle in creation that we observe. We observe these constant cycles in creation every day. So we can't take it as nothing, but we must observe and truly meditate on these things and look at them and take out the time to actually learn of them. Back over here in Genesis chapter 8, verse 22. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. The same as you have what? You have the cold, you have the heat, you have the day, you have the night, you have the sun goes up, the sun goes down every day. The moon comes and it goes through her cycles every month. But do we consider the reason and the purpose behind these things? You have a lot of us, we sit there and say, I just love nature. I just love to be outdoors. But do we actually seek to understand the purpose of what's there? Or are we just say that? Do we just say that because we just enjoy life? Or do we actually seek to learn from those things that's around us? He tells us something over here in Wisdom of Solomon. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13. Let's look at something. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13, we're going to hit verse 1. We're going to hit verse 1, and we're going to take it to verse 4. We're going to see something here. He tells us, it says, surely vain are all men by nature who are ignorant of God, and cannot out of the good things that are seen know him that is. Neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the workmaster, but deemed either fire or wind or the swift air, or the circle of the stars, or the violent water, or the lights of heaven, to be gods, which govern the world, with whose beauty, providing they being delighted to them to be gods, let them know how much better the Lord, the creator of them is. For the first author of beauty have created them. But if they were astonished at their power and virtue, let them understand by them how much mightier he is that made them. See, we'll take delight in the things that the Most High created, but not understand the purpose behind that creation, nor acknowledge the creator of it. You have people, we'll sit there, we'll worship the sun, not understanding its purpose and the meaning of its brightness, what it's a similitude of. But instead, we turn into an idol. That's why you have people that create these sun gods and these sun worshipers. We'll sit there and worship the moon, admiring its beauty while disregarding the creator of it and why he made it. Why does it go through its cycles? What does it mean? How does it shine bright in the darkness but does not actually provide any light for us? Where is its brightness coming from? What does it teach us? See, so we should be trying to figure these things out, not sit there and worship it when it's only temporal. It's only a part of creation. Yeah, people will worship the stars, make idols out of these creations, worshiping volcanoes. See, you can even look that up. When volcano is just a burning mountain that has a purpose for why it was made, but we'll sit there and admire its power and take it to be a god, a spiritual deity. You can look this up. Many people will sit there and will worship volcanoes and look at it as some type of spiritual deity, but completely disregard the creator of it. But this is why we have the problem when we fail to realize that all of these creations, no matter how great these things are, they was never meant to be worshiped nor glorified. But it was for us to understand the works and the power of the Almighty and to glorify him, not the glory in the creation, instead in the creator himself. We should be considering all his works and the things that he made for us to learn from. That's what we should be considering. Tell us something when we go here to Psalms chapter 64. In Psalms chapter 64, and we'll hit verse 9. It says what? And all men shall fear and shall declare the work of God, and they shall wisely consider of his doing. Let's go to Job. We're going to go to Job chapter 12. And we're going to hit verse 7 down to verse 10. And it tells us, but now ask the beasts, and they shall teach thee, and the fowls of the air, and they shall tell thee. Or speak to the earth, and it shall teach thee, and the fish of the sea shall declare unto thee. Who knoweth not in all things that the power of the Spirit of God have wrought this, in whose hand is the soul of every living thing, and the breath of all mankind. See, as long as this world exists, these things, these creations will never cease to exist, because these seasons, these cycles will always be there, and it's going to constantly repeat itself over and over again for us to learn from, for us to consider, for us to observe and understand. We're supposed to understand the purpose behind all these creations. But how can we, unless we actually truly take out the time to truly meditate and consider what the reason it is and what it actually teaches us? But it's all still temporal. Because once this life ends, once this life is over, none of these things will no longer exist, because they only serve their purpose for why they was created in this world. Everything in this world that you see comes to an end. See, that's what I'm trying to get us to understand. Everything that God made in this world was for our sake. To everything, there is a purpose to what it serves, and it's used as a teaching mechanism for us on what we need to understand, not for us to abuse, misuse, or misunderstand the reasoning behind the existence of these creations. But it goes right back over here. Back over here to Romans chapter 1. In Romans chapter 1 verse 20, he tells us again, for the visible things in him for the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. So we ain't got no excuse. We know this. But our problem is when we not truly separating ourselves from the fact that this life is temporal. Everything in this world has its purpose in its temporal existence. But we get caught up in, oh, well, I just want to enjoy life. When this life isn't even real life. He tell us something in Psalms. Let's go over here. Psalms chapter 23. Psalms chapter 23. And we're going to hit verse 4. He says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. So the reason I came over here to show us that this valley of the shadow of death is this world that we walking through. It's a shadow of death. It's just a similitude. We're going to see something with that in Isaiah. We're going to go to Isaiah chapter 9, and we're going to hit verse 2. He tells us, the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, exactly where we at, upon them had the light shine. See, this light, this truth of God's word has shined upon us. But we have to understand this land, this valley of the shadow of death, this world is set in darkness. That's why he tells us this. When we go over here, the second address. We're going to go over here, the second address, chapter 14. Second address, chapter 14, verse 20. He tells us right here, it says, behold, Lord, I will go as thou hast commanded me, and reprove the people which are present. But they that shall be born afterward, who shall admonish them? Thus the world is set in darkness, and they that dwell therein are without light. Why? He's going to tell us when we go over here to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, because we just letting the scriptures speak. He tells us right here in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 4, and it says, in whom the God of this world have blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light, lest the truth of the glorious message of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine upon them. Exactly the point. So providing we are walking through this world and we continue to live according to the course of this world, we always going to be walking in darkness. We always going to be living in confusion and wickedness, because that's how this world is set. It's set in darkness. See, this matrix, this world governed, this world, we see it right here. It says, the God, whom the God of this world have blinded the minds of them which believe not. This system governed by Satan, the God of this world, creates these practices and this lifestyle of darkness, confusion, illusions, and deceptions for us to get caught up in. Because we again have to understand what we actually up against as we go through this life. He tells us when we go over here to Ephesians chapter 6, and we're going to hit verse 12 and verse 13. And it says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. See, that's why I'm saying, see, this light shine upon this dark land, us. Because we was walking in confusion. We was walking in ignorance, but we witnessed this great light. Jehovah's truth has come to each and every single one of us. So we supposed to have this armor upon us as we navigate through this world. So we shouldn't fear no evil, providing Jehovah is with us. So that's why I was saying, everything that God made was for us to learn from and understand its purpose and the truth behind it, to discern the difference between what's good and what's evil. That's why he tells us this when we go over here to Isaiah, because we need to be able to make this difference. He says in Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 15, he tells us, butter and honey shall he eat, shall he learn, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. Second address, chapter 7 And we're going to hit verse 59. And it says, "For this is the life whereof Moses spake unto the people, while he lived, saying, Choose thee life, that thou mayest live." Let's go to Sirach. Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 15. And we're going to hit verse 17. And it says, "Before man, so in the presence of a male and female, is life and death, and whether him likeneth shall be given him." Sirach, chapter 37. We're going to hit verse 27. And to tell us, Sirach, chapter 37, verse 27. "My son, prove thy soul in thy life, and see what is evil for it, and give not that unto it." So we understand that this world, this matrix serves as a proving ground for us, because the choice that is presented before us, which this world offers us, is many choices that all lead to the same exact thing, which is death and darkness. So our only choice, providing we are actually seeking eternal life, is that we have to be willing to completely reject, refuse, and give up this life for the life to come. That's the only choice we have. However, because of the wickedness that's here, that's in the presence of us, is going to prove us. So if we fall victim to the confusion and to the evil, and we start misusing the things that are made because of our wicked imaginations, then we're going to fall victim to those things, because this world is full of darkness. This world is set in darkness. And we cannot allow ourselves to be ruled by the darkness and the confusion that's in the world, and these practices and the lifestyles that's here. So the only way to escape this present darkness is to flee from it and hold to JEHOVAH, because he is the light. And we have to dwell in that. But in order for us to do that, we cannot operate on this world system. But as long as we choose to live for this world, we'll always dwell in darkness. Why? Because we're going to continue to use our own reasoning, the mind of the carnal man. So it goes back over here. We're going to go back over here to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2. And now we're going to hit verse 1. And we're going to take it to verse 9. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 1, verse 9. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 1 to verse 9. And it says, "For the ungodly said, reasoning with themselves, but not aright. Our life is short and tedious." So it's tedious. So it's boring. It's tiresome. It's dull. "And in the death of a man, there is no remedy. Neither was there any man known to have returned from the grave." See, this is why we'll sit there and say, oh, well, I just want to have some fun. I just want to do something that's entertaining. We don't want to study. We don't want to meditate. We don't want to truly put in the work for God. We don't want to give up this life for the life of JEHOVAH. See, if we do that, that's tedious. That's boring. That's dull. That's tiresome. I need some enjoyment in my life. Life too short for that. This is what we'll do when we sit there and we reasoning amongst ourselves. And he said, verse 2, "For we are born at all adventure, and we shall be hereafter as though we had never been. For the breath in our nostrils is as comparing smoke, and a little spark in the moving of our heart. While being extinguished, our body shall be turned into ashes, and our spirit shall vanish as the soft air. And our name and our way shall be forgotten in time. And no man shall have our works in remembrance, and our life shall pass away as comparing the trace of a cloud, and shall be dispersed as a mist that is driven away with the beams of the sun, and overcome with the heat thereof. For our time is a very shadow that passeth away, and after our end there is no returning. for it is fast sealed, so that no man cometh again. Come on, therefore, let us enjoy the good things that are present, and let us speedily use the creatures like as in youth. Let us fill ourselves with costly wine and ointments, and let no flower of the spring pass by us. Let us crown ourselves with rosebuds before they be withered. Let none of us go without his part of our voluptuousness. Let us leave tokens of our joyfulness in every place, for this is our portion, and our lot is this. Verse 21. Such things did they imagine and were deceived, for their own wickedness had blinded them. So again, it shows us the mindset of those dwelling in darkness, being blinded by the false realities that this world presents to us. This world presents everything to us to please and to entertain our flesh, to just give us that little high that we looking for, that little temporary satisfaction that we be looking for, and we go for it. We chase it. Deceiving ourselves by our own vain imagination of the devices that we imagine we come up with. So again, that's why we'll hear, well, I only get one life to live, so hey, I gotta live my life to the fullest. That's letting you know this is the way of the ungodly. Reasoning in our mind, those who are choosing to live separated from God. This is what we do. See, everybody knows that this life is going to come to an end. You have some people that believe that they're going to be reincarnated again, which is stupidity. But most people understand that this life is nothing but a vapor, a temporary existence. But instead of using our short time here to learn of what we need to understand from God's creation and learn of the truth of his word and the things that he's showing us, we trying to make the best out of this life. And we deceiving our own selves when this world is an illusion. Because we sleep and we become blinded from the truth. Can you tell us over here in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2? 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, he tells us right here, we're going to hit verse 7. Then we're going to hit verse 10. We're going to hit verse 7, and then we're going to hit verse 10 down to verse 12. We're going to see this. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, starting at verse 7, and it says, for the mystery of iniquity, of acts of sin, do already work. Only he who now letteth will let, until he be taken out of the way. So again, that choice is on us. It's all on us. So if we allow ourselves to stay caught up in the things of this life, then that's our own fault. That's our own reasoning, because we choosing temporary pleasures over an eternal life of peace, all because we want to keep living here, all because we want to keep enjoying life, which is no life at all. But we choosing to live for this world and entertain the things that's here. So that's on us. Only he that will let until he be taken out of the way. Verse 10, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause, God should send them strong delusion. So this strong delusion, this blindness, this delusion, this illusion, that they should believe a lie, that they might all be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. So we see this here. We sit there and we will fall in love with every single thing that this world has to offer us, living our lives to the fullest, thinking we're doing something, because we become blind and we don't even realize it. We don't even know we be doing that. We seeking to please ourselves rather than to please JEHOVAH, because we're using our own reasoning to justify ourselves and why we should live the lives we want to live, why we should have this perfect life in this world that we want. And that reasoning, that very reasoning, will lead us down the pathway to perdition and destruction. He's going to tell us something when we go over here to Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 27. We're going to hit Proverbs chapter 27, and we're going to hit verse 20. And he tells us, it says what? Hell and destruction are never full. So the understandings of man are never satisfied. The understandings of man are never filled. They're never quenched. So the understandings of man, of flesh, is never satisfied. See, it's like a thirst that you just can't quench because you're going to keep just going back. You're just going to keep going back to it. You're just going to keep going back. Just keep going back. You're just going to keep going back because we can't ever get away from it. That's why you see these things happen on what we do here. We're going to go over here to Numbers chapter 14. In Numbers chapter 14, we're going to hit verse 4. He tells us, it says what? And they said one to another, let us make us a captain. Let's make us a head. Let's make us a leader. Let's get us somebody to rule over us and tell us what to do. And so let us return into Egypt so we can go back to bondage, so we can go back to confusion. Why? Let's go to Numbers chapter 11. We're going to hit verse 5 and verse 6. He's going to tell us why. Why? We remember the fish. Oh, we remember all that, which we did learn in Egypt in the house of bondage freely, and the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. But now our soul is dried away, and there is nothing at all besides this manna, this knowledge of God, in the presence of our eyes, in the presence of our understanding. See, we remember all these things. Why? Because if we still in our flesh, we ain't never going to be satisfied. We ain't never going to be content with Jehovah's provisions. Because our mind never leaves from bondage. We still holding on to things from the past. We never let this flesh go. See, if we continue to hold to this flesh, we are never going to be content with just the knowledge of God. We always going to go back to something else that tickles our ears, that pleases our fleshly desires. We always going to go back to those familiar things that we used to, those familiar appetites that pleases our flesh. That's why we say we remember the fish. We remember all that stuff because it's familiar to our flesh. So we go back to it. Those things when we was in bondage to this world, because that's what we used to. Why? Again, Wisdom of Solomon 2:1. For the ungodly said, reasoning with themselves, our life is short and tedious. So we need something. So we'll sit there, we need something to entertain our flesh. Those familiar things that brought us that excitement and that pleasure to us. This is what we'll get into. These are things that will happen. Can you tell us over here? Let's go to 2 Timothy chapter 4. And we're going to hit verse 3 and verse 4. It says what? For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lusts shall heap to themselves teachers, having itching ears. And they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned to fables. So he's letting us know that this is going to happen. So he's not telling us that this could possibly happen. This is going to happen. And it's happening right now. Again, all of us know we was put to the test with that raven man. And it showed us how easily we could get caught up. And we got caught up. It showed me how easily I allow my flesh to influence me, having tickling ears. Oh man, this sounds good. Dang, that show made me feel good. But that's the point. That's the deception. Because that's pleasing to our flesh. I'm just being real about it. Because that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to hear. Because that's what we'll desire. We desire to hear those things. We desire to hear those smooth things that make us feel good. Because that's the familiar appetite. We remember the fish. We remember these things that we ate freely, that we learned freely. It's familiar to us. It sounds good. So that showed me that I never got rid of my flesh. I can say whatever I want to say. I still went backwards so I can flip it and twist it however I want to do it. But if I do that, I'll be 100% lying to myself. Because if that wasn't true, then I never would have got caught on it. I would have recognized immediately, but I didn't. So I can lie to myself all day, sitting there saying, well, I didn't say anything. Yeah, I didn't say anything physically, but guess what? It was in my heart. It was in my heart. Showing you, I was still caught up in flesh, blind, sleep. When we told all the time, no mind, no mind. We told us all the time. And what's the first thing I do? Well, it kind of makes sense. First thing, we told, no mind. First thing, start reasoning. And just like that, dead. And that's how you get yourself killed. Reasoning amongst ourselves. But he tell us something when we go over here to, we're going to go over here to James. Let's look at something. We're going to go here to James chapter 1. In James chapter 1 and verse 8, he says what? A double-minded man, a double-minded male or female is unstable in all his ways. Why? Because no matter what, you're going to try to go back and forth. You're going to try to reason between two things. And it's not going to work. It's not going to do anything but cause confusion. So with this mindset, we could never discern the difference between what's good and what's evil. Because we're trying to use too many minds. That's confusion. So when we get put in a position to try the spirit, first thing we're going to do, we're going to waver. We ain't going to know. We're going to be unsure because we're trying to use our own mind. And that's causing instability and understanding. So we'll waver every single time. But he tell us something in Proverbs. We're going to go to Proverbs chapter 23, verse 1 and 2. Tell us this. It says, when thou sittest to eat, so when thou sittest to learn with a ruler, consider diligently what is in the presence of thee, and put a knife to thy throat, if providing thou be a man that's given an appetite, that's given to that craving, that longing, that lust. Exactly what I was saying. It's those familiar appetites that get us. It's those cravings, that longing for what we've been waiting to hear. Oh man, this is what I've been waiting for. This is what I've been waiting to hear. Man, this show making me feel good. See, that's what's going to get us. But we need to consider always what's before us. Because we can't sit there and play the game. And trust any flesh. Trust no flesh. Count every man a liar. That goes for me as well. And let God be true. But the fact of the matter is, we was clearly warned. Because the elder already, he already warned us. The next time it's not going to come from him. See, that was a test. But the next time it's going to come from somewhere else. So we have to understand again, that very experience still served as a learning process for us. It still was a learning process because we still have an opportunity to grow and understand from it. But if we sit there and we don't consider what got us and we don't seek the correction and we act like we all good and we know what's going on, then I promise you, we will get got. It's going to happen because no matter what, we're going to stay caught up in this flesh. We're going to continue to go after those lusts. We're going to continue to go after those cravings and those familiar appetites, those things that we used to. We're going to continue to feed into our fleshly appetites, those desires that we used to when it presents itself in the presence of us. We're going to choose that. But just know, if we do that, he will give us over to exactly what we desire to be into. That's why he tells us again. We go back over here to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 7. For the mystery of iniquity doeth already work. Only he who now letteth, will let, until he be taken out of the way. Let's go to Romans. We're going to go to Romans chapter 1, verse 28. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind and to do those things which are not convenient. We're going to jump to verse 32. Who, knowing the judgment, the doctrines and teachings of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, are worthy of a separation from God, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. Exactly the point. So whatever we jiving with, whatever clicks with us, whatever we hold to, whatever we agreeing to, that we actually tying ourselves to. If we sit there and we reject Jehovah's knowledge for our own fleshly appetites, then know this. We are choosing a temporary satisfaction that's going to lead to nothing but eternal separation from God. But we have to understand that, again, it's a double whammy for us on this. Because the flesh, again, we have to remember again that flesh is going to die anyways. That's why, again, we'll see this again here in Sirach 14:17. All flesh waxeth old as comparing a garment, for the agreement from the beginning is, thou shalt die to death. So this we already know will happen. So being that our flesh is going to die, then why would we choose to do the work to receive the second death? See, knowing that the flesh is going to die and our lives here in this world are going to come to an end, why would we sit there and choose to try to get every little drop out of this life that we can? We could gain and achieve everything we want out of this world, and in the end, it's still all going to go back and lead us back to vanity. Because it goes back over here, to Ecclesiastes, chapter 8, verse 6, down to 8. Because to every purpose there is a time and judgment. Therefore the misery of man is great upon him. For he knoweth not that which shall be. For who can tell him when it shall be? There is no man that hath power over the spirit to retain the spirit. Neither have he had the power in the day of death. So we have to understand that the breath within us, the very spirit, is our very life source. Without the spirit, we dead. And we don't have power over the spirit to retain the spirit. So once it leaves us, that's it. We're not getting that life back. That's it. It's done. You know, it's just like looking at a bottle of water. That bottle is that vessel that contains the water within it, which that water is that life source. But once that water leaves the bottle, then that bottle is nothing. It's nothing. But it was only the very vessel that carried the life source within it. But we try to hold on to our lives, not understanding that we're never going to get this life back. Once it's done, it's done. We can't change that. We can't change that or do anything that changes that outcome. So we go over here, the 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel chapter 14, verse 14, up to the semicolon. He tell us for what? For we must needs die, and are as comparing water spilt on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. So this is the point. This must happen. This is necessary. This is going to happen. It's inevitable. We can't avoid this. But our issue is we don't want to accept what the truth is. So we try to hold on to this little temporary life of nothing. We don't want to let this flesh die, but we have to die. Let me show you something. I want us to look at something. I want us to observe something. You see this? We see this guy here. See, this is what it looks like when we trying to hold on to our life. Wasting our time. Wasting our time. See, that water is already spilled. We can't gather that back to ourselves. But you see, this man is trying to gather this water. And he's wasting his time. He's wasting his time going after something that is already vanity. But this is how it looks when we trying to preserve our lives in this world, in this flesh. We completely wasting our time trying to do this. So when we try to hold on to things of this world, we holding on to a temporary existence. We seeking to preserve every ounce of this life that we can, trying to quench every thirst, every desire, every longing, every craving that we have to save and preserve ourselves. But for what? We want to hold on to in our lives instead of letting it die. Not understanding once that time comes, the outcome is not going to change. Once it's gone, it's gone. This life is a vapor. Everything can change for us in the blink of an eye, in just a moment in time. We will never get that life back that we had. We ain't never going to get those years back. We ain't never going to go back and change anything. We can't preserve this life in the flesh. It's completely vanity and worthless to do such a thing, to seek such a thing. See, it doesn't matter what we've done, what we've achieved, and what we've accomplished. Neither does it matter how great we are in this world, nor how poor we are in this world. The outcome still remains the same. See, all of this that we're talking about is leading us to one solution. This is all it's doing. So we're going to go somewhere as we continue to move forward. And we're going to go over here. Let's go over here to Ecclesiastes. We're going to go to Ecclesiastes chapter 2. And he tells us, Ecclesiastes chapter 2, and we're going to hit verse 14 to verse 16. I'm sure some of us here already know what that solution is, but we're going to continue to move forward. As he tells us in Ecclesiastes, starting at chapter 2 and verse 14, it says what? The wise man eyes, so the wise man understandings are in his head. But the fool walketh, he liveth in darkness. So he lives in confusion and wickedness. And I myself perceive also that one event happeneth to them all. Then said I in my heart, as it happeneth to the fool, so it happeneth even to me. And why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart, that this also is vanity. For there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever. Seeing that which is now is in the days to come, shall all be forgotten. And how dieth the wise man? As the fool. That's why I said the outcome is still the same. So we're not getting around this. But there's a stark difference between the choice that we make. See, we can either be as the wise man while understanding that this flesh is going to die. However, providing we seek eternal life, we know we must kill the lifestyles of this flesh in order to gain life. Or we can be as the fool who lives his entire life in confusion and in the deceptions of this world. These temporary pleasures of vanity, which is only for a moment until it all ceases to exist. See, you have people that might say, well, I didn't really get to live my life like that. You know, I still got things that I want to go out and do in this world. I still got things I want to do. I want to go out and enjoy myself in this life for a bit. And then I can come back, you know, I can live for God later. I just need to go live my life. Guess what? That very mindset, again, a complete waste of time. To think we can live for ourselves and then choose to live for God as well. It's a waste of time. Because who in the world told us that we had time? Who told us that we had the time to live our little vain life that we want to live, and then we going to come back and serve God later whenever we want to? Who told us that? Where we get that from? We go over here to James. He tell us again. James chapter 4, verse 14. Tell us, it says what? Whereas you know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away. Sirach. chapter 41 and verse 4. Let's do it this way. Sirach chapter 41, verse 4. And it says, "And why art thou against the pleasure of the Most High? There is no inquisition in the grave, whether thou hast lived 10 or 100 or 1,000 years." So again, who told us that we had time? See, many of us, we had our time in this world and lived the lives that we wanted to live before coming to the truth, and have been granted with the opportunity to get it right. See, each and every day that we wake up, each and every day is a blessing, because that's another opportunity that we blessed to see. But we'll take that for granted. We'll say we don't, but we'll do it. We'll take it for nothing. First thing we do, we get up in the morning, scrolling through our phone, looking at what's on the news, go about our business and our daily lives, our daily routine, seeing what's on TV, seeing what we can find good to eat today, looking for jobs, doing our usual routines. And then the last thing on our mind, let me see if I can get a little study in. Let me see if I can watch a lesson real quick. Last thing on our mind. Why? Because we think we have time, when we actually never know when our soul will be demanded of us. See, think about those who didn't have that time that we have right now, who didn't receive the blessings of wisdom that we receive into this very day. Anyone who's passed on that's no longer here has that opportunity to change anything. Why? Because there's no examination in the grave. But those of us who are living right now, we'll squander our opportunity like it's nothing, because for whatever reason, we believe that we have time. Oh, well, I'll just study tomorrow. I'll meditate on that lesson some other day. You know, I'm wrestling with my understanding on something, but I ain't gonna worry about it today. I ain't gonna worry about that right now. I'll make that phone call some other time, because I got other things to take care of. So doing this, providing we continue to indulge ourselves in the vanity of our worldly lives, what do we really believe our outcome is going to be? I want us all to ask ourselves a question within ourselves, because we believe we have time. I want us all to ask a question within ourselves. If our very souls were required of us this day, this very night, where will we end up? I want us to really consider that within ourselves and truly ask ourselves, if our souls were required of us this very night, where would we end up? We need to answer that. See, I'm going to share something with y'all what I did. See, as I sat here and I was going through just meditating on this lesson last night, I decided to take a bottle of water. And I took that bottle of water and I poured a little bit of that water, just a drop of it, on the table. And as I was going through my notes and everything, I just watched it. I just watched that one drop of water that sat on the table. I didn't mess with it. I didn't do nothing to it. It just sat there. So as I was going through my studies, I was looking back at it, going through my study, looking back at it, just observing it just to see what it was going to do. I'm sitting there looking at it like, it looked like something happening to it, but I wasn't sure. Eventually, in that same night, it was gone. Like it was never there. It probably took around an hour or so for it to happen. But it was there for one moment. And in that same very night, it was gone. It was there for a moment. And that same night, it was gone. Like it never even existed. And that's the same as our own lives. Let you know how short our lives really are. See, we don't know how long we have in this world. We don't know when our time gonna come. We don't know the appointed time, nor do we know the day or hour. But once that time comes, it could be in a blink of a moment. We could be here for one moment, and the next moment we not. We just don't know. Just as when that drop of water was poured out, once it hit that surface, that was it. It was gone in a moment. It disappeared like it was never there from the beginning. It only existed in a moment in time, and that's it. See, that helped me understand how real it is for me, that our lives are nothing to play around with. So with that water, we can see once it hit that table, it could not be gathered up back again. At that point, it was a waste, showing you that our lives here are nothing but a vapor, is vanity, which the water could not be taken back up again. Once it hit that table, I couldn't put it back in the cup, or I couldn't put it back in that bottle. So once it fall upon the ground, that's it. But once it's spilled and it's not received into anything, it's no longer of any use. That's the point. It was a complete waste. So if we continue to live according to this world, not realizing that this life in the flesh and all the things that we achieve in this world is going to come to an end, we are going to waste our time in this flesh in vain things, not considering our time will come to an end, which we cannot determine. So let's go to Mark. See something. He tells us in Mark chapter 13. Mark chapter 13, and we're going to hit verse 32. As it says, but of that day and that hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels, the messengers which are in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. Verse 33, take heed, watch and pray, for you know not when the time is. But a lot of us, we ain't going to take this seriously. We going to squander this opportunity. Once this flesh expires, we ain't coming back. But we'll spend our days in vanity, all behind believing we can gather up as much as we want and desires that we have in this life, reasoning amongst ourselves. That's why you can even see this here when we go to Luke chapter 12. Luke chapter 12, we're going to hit verse 16 down to 21. And it says, and he spake a parable unto them, saying, the ground, we know it's from the ground, flesh is from the ground. So the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentiful. Watch what's going on. And he thought within himself. Again, this is what we're talking about. Just as the ungodly reason within themselves, he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do? Because I have no room where to bestow my fruits, my works. But all these works was coming from the ground. So he was rich and plentiful in worldly gains, these worldly riches. We're going to see. And he said, this will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater. And there will I bestow all my fruits, all my works, and all my goods. Watch this. And I will say to my soul, see, reasoning within himself, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, be merry. Again, reasoning with ourselves. Sitting there, oh man, I done did all this work. Man, I'm good. I done accomplished them up. I done put in all this work. I done got everything that I wanted out of this life. Let me kick back, relax, chill, kick up my feet, enjoy my prosperity. I'm good. This is what we do. But God said unto him, thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then who shall those things be which thou hast provided? Verse 21. So as he that layeth up treasure for himself is not rich towards God. So we can see here how we can completely waste all of our time in this life building up these riches and these treasures for ourselves in this world. Completely wasting all our time, just as water spilt upon the ground. All of our efforts towards our own ambitions, our own goals, and our own glory. And what profit is that once our soul is required of us? So we're going to go over here. We're going to hit Matthew chapter 19. He tells us in verse 24, and it says, and again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. So if we storing up riches and possessions for ourselves, then that is nothing but vanity. Those of us who prosper in this life, that flourish in the world, you have all these millionaires out here, people making thousands and thousands of dollars, but just to store it up for themselves, what profit is it? once that life is required of us? Who would those riches go to? You can't take it with you. What will it serve for you in the life to come? See, even those of us who possess great knowledge, what profit is it if you are full of knowledge and you rich in knowledge, but you're not willing to distribute to one that's lacking, one that's poor? Do we believe that we're going to be justified just because we have much knowledge? See, you have to understand, a true servant of God does not hoard up riches for himself. We're going to see something. Let's go over here to Sirach. Let's go to Sirach. This is Sirach. Yep. Sirach chapter 20. And we're going to hit verse 30. He tell us something. It says what? Wisdom that is hid and treasure that is hoarded up. What profit is in them both? What profit is it? Let's go over here to Tobit. Tobit chapter 4 and verse 7. And it says, give alms of thy substance, and when thou givest alms, so these good deeds, let not thine eye, thy understanding be envious, be covetous, neither turn thy face from any poor. So any that's lacking in understanding, and the face of God should not be turned away from thee. Sirach. Sirach chapter 19, and we're going to hit verse 24. Sirach chapter 19, verse 24, it says, he that have small understanding and fear of God and desireth God is better than one that have much wisdom and transgresseth the law of the Most High. Because we want to use the wisdom that's given unto us for all the wrong reasons. Full of knowledge, and we want to use it for all the wrong reasons. We just want to use it for gain. We want to use it for notoriety, for popularity, for boasting, for bragging rights, to compare ourselves with others, but won't genuinely help out the ones that's in need. See, just because we have much wisdom and much knowledge, that does not mean anything if we're not willing to sell all we have. If we're not willing to exchange this life and truly sacrifice our own selfish desires and our own ambitions and truly give up this life and submit ourselves to JEHOVAH by living according to his way. Because any other thing outside of that, it's a waste of time. You're wasting your time. See, this is why it's not about how much knowledge one possesses. It's not about what title that you have. It's not about being in high positions of authority, because you can have all those things and never fulfill what we actually appointed here to do, because we'll covet those things that we desire to ourselves and still lack one thing. We refuse to submit ourselves as servants to JEHOVAH and showing that true obedience to the covenant. We refuse to do it. But we want everything else. He tell us something in Luke chapter 18. See something. Shit, where we at? Where is 8? Luke chapter 18, we're going to hit verse 18. Down to 24. Tell us, it says, and a certain ruler asked him, saying, good master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? Yahweh said unto him, why callest thou me good? There is none good save only one, that is God. Thou knowest the commandments: do not commit adultery, do not kill, do not steal, do not bear false witness, honor thy father and thy mother. And he said, all these have I kept from my youth up. So he kept all these things. He knows all these things. He has knowledge of those instructions. But guess what? He doing all those things physically. He doing all these physical things. However, it's something that he lacks. Now when Yahweh heard these things, he said to him, yet lackest thou one thing. Sell all that thou hast, and including distribute unto the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come follow me. So each and every single one of us, you have to be willing to give up everything. You have to be willing to completely lay down your life, lay down your own ways, lay down your own living practices and desires of this world. We have to be willing to lay down everything for the life of Christ and take up our suffering unto death, being servants of God and sharing Jehovah's word with his people. This is what we have to do. But are we truly willing to lay down everything? That's the question. Verse 23, and when he heard this, he was very sorrowful, for he was very rich. He had everything that he wanted. And Yahweh saw that he was very sorrowful. He said, how hardly shall they that have riches enter into the kingdom of God. So this rich man went away sorrowful because he wasn't willing to give up his life to live according to JEHOVAH. But that was the condition. In order for us to truly get to the other side, if we truly saying we're going to get to the other side, we must be willing to let go of everything that we desire and completely separate from this life. Meaning what? We have to die. Meaning we have to die to this world. See, the kingdom is supposedly within us. So how can the kingdom be within us if we don't give up this worldly stuff? We have to get rid of all these things. We got to die to the things of this world. He tell us something in Mark chapter 8. Mark chapter 8, and we're going to hit verse 36 and verse 37. He tell us, he says, what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? What is it going to profit? What are we going to give? What's it going to profit if we gain the whole world and we lose our soul? It's nothing to profit from that. That's what we have to understand. That's why we have to let this life go. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 1. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 1, it says, a good name, a good way is better than a precious ointment, and the day of death better than the day of one's birth. So the day of separation is better than the day of one's birth. Why? Because we are born into this world in sin. And as long as we stay tied to this world, we always going to live in sin. So the only way for us to be freed from the prison of this world is for us to die. We have to be separated from this flesh. We need to die from this to this world. It's necessary. We must die. We must be separated from this life of flesh. We have to completely unplug from this world system. That is our only option. We have to give up this life. See, it's just like you have a computer, and the only way to completely shut down that computer is to unplug it from its power source. We can't just hit the off button, but that's what we want to do. We want to hit the off button. Because if we hit the off button, all it's going to do is turn back on. All we got to do is go to it and go right back to it and keep turning it on and off. What we going to do? Keep turning it on and off, keep turning it on and off, keep turning it on and off. That's what we tend to do. That's why we end up going back to the things that we like in this world. We keep turning it on and off instead of breaking that cycle. We have to completely unplug. We have to separate from its power source, meaning we have to sever this power that we've given this flesh over us. We have to completely sever from it. We can't keep turning it on and off. It's either going to be unplugged and shut down, or it's not. It's going to be one or the other. That's why he tell us, Romans 12:1, he tell us what? I beseech you for that reason, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. So this must be done, a complete and total surrender of our body unto JEHOVAH. Romans chapter 8, we're going to hit verse 5 down to verse 8. He tell us, for they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the spirit, the things of the spirit. For to be carnally minded is death. That's a separation from God. But to be spiritually minded is life and peace, because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, neither in deed and works can be. So then they that are in the flesh cannot please God. Why? Because this flesh isn't subject to God. It's always going to be in rebellion against the spirit. So when we find ourselves struggling with the spirit, when we going back and forth, when we turning it on and off, when we hot towards God one minute and the next minute we cold, when we being lukewarm, when we sitting there, we keep riding the fence. Why? Because we refuse to die. We refuse to just let this body of this flesh die. Because the die is a separation. We're either going to live in flesh and be separated from God, or we're going to separate from the flesh and live in Christ. That's why he tells us in verse 13, It says, for if you live after the flesh, you shall die. You're going to be separated from God. But provided ye through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body. So we have to crucify. We have to put to death the deeds, the works of the body. You shall live. So we see he's telling us exactly what we need to do. We can't do this thing halfway. We can't do this thing. We can't halfway do what we're doing. We have to completely sever our attachments to this world and to this life. That is the only way we can break this cycle of rebellion, because we need JEHOVAH, and only through JEHOVAH can we receive life and break this cycle of confusion. And it goes right back. It goes right back. 2 Samuel, again, chapter 14:14. For we must die. We have to be died. We have to separate from this flesh. It's necessary that we be separated from this flesh. However, the knowledge that's given unto us supposed to reside within us. And we supposed to receive that within us so we can bring forth these spiritual works, just as a seed being received into the ground. We're going to see something. He tell us over here in John. He tell us in John chapter 12. John chapter 12 and verse 24. He tell us right here. It says what? Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But however, if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. So it bringeth forth much work. Why? See, we are from the ground, but what's inside of us is what's living, which is that living word, that seed that's planted within us. But that seed has to actually die to open up what's inside of it to grow out of us. But if it abide alone, it's going to remain in that same state. Why? Because it's not doing anything. Because we're not working it. Because it remains isolated and separated from JEHOVAH because we refuse to do his will. But if it dies, we have to surrender to JEHOVAH. We have to let this flesh die, submit to his transformation that's happening within us. This shell that we have up has to be broken. We have to be released from these selfish desires of this flesh and our own reason of our mind, and now live according to the Spirit. Now the work that we're doing is going to come from the fruit that's being produced. So once we free, we no longer then operating according to the flesh. Now we submitting to God. Now we can bring forth those works of the Spirit because we abiding in JEHOVAH. That's why he tell us. That's why he tell us right here in John chapter 15. John chapter 15, verse 4 and 5, he says what? Abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear works of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can you, except you abide in me. I am the vine, I am the path, and you are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, much works. For without me, you can do nothing. So we see we can't do anything without JEHOVAH. Only through him can we bring forth much fruit, these spiritual works. But how can we truly accomplish this? Because we have to remember, it's only through the Spirit, by the Spirit, that we can put to death the deeds of this body. Because remember, this flesh operates on this world system. This world operates on lies, deceptions, and illusions. So that's what the flesh will operate in. However, that seed planted in us, this word of truth, it has to grow forth from us. That's what we have to understand. That's the only way that we can be free from this prison. By that treasure that JEHOVAH has buried in us, transforming us into these new creatures that's not subject to this world practices. But if we stay living to this life, we always going to operate under this world system, no matter what. We always going to have ties to this world. We always going to operate in rebellion, never opening our understanding to what is true. So we have to let go of our carnal ways of thinking. We have to let go of our carnal mind. He tells us in Philippians chapter 1, verse 21. He says what? For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. So to die to this world is this transformation that we must go through to attain that life in Christ. So the word from above must rest in us so we can die to this world and live according to the Spirit. John chapter 8, verse 23. And he said unto them, you are from beneath, and I am from above. Ye are of this world, I am not of this world. So Jehovah, this word of truth, he does not operate in the space and time of this world. He does not operate on this world system, which this world cannot understand. But Jehovah operates outside of this world system. This world can only create illusions and false perceptions, but it cannot comprehend nor understand what is unseen, which is spirit. So our flesh is from the ground, which is of the world, but the spirit is not of the world. So when we let our flesh die, we unplugging from this world system. Now the only thing that's left for us is to operate 100% in spirit, which then separates us from this carnal system, being completely laying down our life for the life of God. That's why he tells us in John 15 and verse 13, it says what? Greater love have no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. So question is, are we willing to lay down our lives? Are we going to become friends of God? That's the question. Or will we remain to stay companions of this world? James 4:4. Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore would be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. Romans 12:1-2. I beseech you for that reason, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So hopefully we receive some understanding in this lesson and got an understanding on what we need to do to make this transformation. Because we have to remember that this life is a vapor. Though the world presents many choices before us, but they are many vain things that we can get into, but they all lead to the same thing, which is death, which leads to a separation from God. Because no matter what we do, no matter what we enjoy and get out of this life, all things will come to an end because they serve no purpose other than a distraction from what our true purpose is. So providing we spend all of our time in this life, and we never truly die to this world and unplug from this world system, then how can we truly expect to get to the other side? So what are we willing to do? What are we willing to sacrifice to achieve the life that we hope for? Either live for this world and its vanity, or die to this life and gain our true lives in Christ. That choice is ours. So again, we don't know the day or hour when our souls shall be required of us. So we must decide whose side that we actually are on before that time comes. So with that, we're going to end this teaching right here. Now, hopefully someone was richly edified from this lesson and we can understand what we need to do moving forward while on this journey. So with that, I'd like to appreciate everyone for coming out and tuning in to this lesson. This was Evangelist James with the King James Bible University, Durham, North Carolina. And I would like to say, Shalom.